So this is Leslie Josel from Order Out of Chaos. She has all kinds of academic planners and videos and things to help students. Specifically, you have a lot of material around students with ADHD, great for other
Yes,
resources for parents, everything.
So we are massive. I'm going to say this. We are an online virtual community. We're global.
Yeah.
So you don't have to live where we live. And we have a tremendous amount of what we call parent education resources. There are webinars, there's videos, there's books, all not, your kid doesn't have to be neurodivergent, but it definitely lends itself to those that struggle with executive functioning and ADHD. So it's a myriad of topics on executive functioning, skills that go along with it, as well as parenting, parenting help as well. So it runs the gamut from all of those topics. So yes.
Exactly. So many resources. And my kids are not, they're, typical, but all children are immature and don't have the executive functioning that they will eventually hopefully mature into. It's all great resources.
But what we find, it's funny, like we have different videos, and I'm not here as a infomercial sell, but like we have on time management, on procrastination, on overwhelm.
Yep.
And we find that like the time management one is the one that parents go to again and again, and parents will come and say, like, I don't have a child that has like ADHD, but my child has time management challenges. And we're like, just by the sheer nature of how old your child is, their executive functions won't be fully developed. So every kid shows up at the table in some way with lagging skills. That's how we say it.
Exactly.
Some lag a lot more than others. So there's always a need for, information and resources on these subjects. So
exactly. And what better time to talk than this is actually National Planner Day. So happy Planner Day. And
my Super Bowl.
And I think of August as like, this is go time of getting ready for school. We want to grasp the last bit of summer that we have, but we also have to start thinking ahead a little bit to how we're going to manage school.
We are in back to school mode at Order Out of Chaos. Yeah,
exactly. Absolutely. So what does back to school mode entail? And maybe we can talk a little bit about how, what parents can do to help those kids get ready. And
so we do a lot of that kind of work and say, okay, what is it? Because I think as parents, we're very mindful of, okay, I have my school supply list, so let's go run over to either Staples or Office, whatever's in your neighborhood, or even on Target or Amazon, and buy like the 2-inch binder. But what we forget about is that there's other things that we need to be prepping. And my school of thought, pun intended, is that we need to, as much as organization is important, and it is, we also need to be thinking about time. And in my world, time is an organization. And I think that's an interesting point. It is. So here's a little bit of a fun fact for you. If you are looking at executive functions, organization and time go hand in hand, because when your child does not know where they sit in time, when your child is not time aware, let's just make it user friendly, right? They don't know how long something takes. They don't know, how long something happened, how much more time is left. That's actually a disorganization.
Yeah.
Think about it. They're disorganized. So when parents are making that back to school shop list, this is what I suggest. And the first thing I always say is you need to, in your homes, you need to externalize time so that your child can internalize it. And that is a fancy, fancy way of saying, if your child cannot see time, they cannot be expected to manage it. Okay. Yeah. That's it. And so when we go, we're leaving at 5, you have soccer practice at 5:30, or, school, we got to be out the door at 7 to get to school. There's an expectation, and I'm not here to disparage parents. We all do it. I used to do this 1,000 years ago, that our kid can actually internalize that word, be able to understand it. But they can't, nor should we expect them to. So as parents, what we need to be doing is externalizing it in any way we can. And by externalizing, I'm talking about anything visual that you can make your kids see time. So the first thing I want everyone to do out there, you see my little analog clock.
Yeah.
I tell parents, analogs in every room your child spends time in, including the bathroom, especially the bathroom. And if you have a teen, there's got to be one in the shower unless they can see the one that's hanging in the bathroom. I'm sorry, I'm keeping, but if you know, you know. That's kind of where your kid gets lost if you have a teenager. They kind of stay in that shower for 20 minutes for whatever
Oh, I
reason,
forgot to use soap. How were you
right?
in there
Or
for?
I'm just daydreaming, or I'm sitting here just thinking, or wherever your mind wants to go.
Totally.
But what happens when they see these analogs is they internalize time. They see time move. Time is not one dimensional. Time is three dimensional. So digitals don't cut it because digitals only give you one time. They only give you the present. So if you really want your kid to see time, that's number one. Okay.
Hmm.
Number two is if you have younger kids and you have like that family, that shared family calendar, right? You know what I'm talking about? Where we write on it 5:30 soccer or 2
Yep.
o'clock, whatever. That's not time management. That's just a list. That's not even a list. If you truly want your child to see time, you need to do what I call map it. You need to map time. So I want you, instead of it saying 5:30, I want you to say, and again, I'm just making this up, 5 o'clock, get dressed, 5:15, out the door, 5:30, soccer. See what I did
Mm.
there? I actually externalized the time. I showed you time move. And hopefully now your child organically will start to internalize that process. And then my other, and again, I have
So that
50,000 of
helps
them.
them see the process of getting ready, not just the deadline time. It breaks it the
What
steps
does
up.
deadline time do for any of us? If you are not time aware, telling me that I have to be at soccer at 5:30 does not help me move through the process.
Right.
I don't know how long it's going to take me to get dressed. I don't know how long it's going to take me to get there. You need to map out time because
Yep.
it's just you're seeing time move.
Okay.
Remember?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
want
Yeah. Yeah.
you all to think the word, you've got to see time. And we think of time, we tend to think of time as being invisible. Time is very much not invisible. Time is three-dimensional. It has a beginning, middle, and end, it has a future, it has a past. So we're all, what I'm trying to do is I don't need to tell your community how to get ready for back to school. They know, like, you know, how to get organized.
Yeah. They've
I
got the
know
school supply
you
list. They've
are,
got the backpacks that, yes.
not only that, you are the queen. I don't need to like step on the queen's toe here, but what I want, you are, I know you, I know what you do. But what I want you all to be thinking about, how are you getting ready for back to school when it comes to time?
Yeah.
We don't focus on
This
that.
is great because I still remember being at the playground with my, with littles, and, some mom is going, "We're leaving in 5 minutes," to a 3-year-old. And I'm like, they have no idea what that means.
No
But
idea.
if it's like, okay, now it's time to start, instead you lead them on that process. I love that. So now it's time to start finishing what you're doing, and then we're going to put your shoes back on, and then we're going to,
Exactly. You're transitioning them
and helping
to
them.
go through
And
the
you can
process.
talk with those 5-minute words, so they at some
Right.
point begin to learn to associate those with the time words with what they're doing. But yeah, the
100%.
process.
And you just led me into my third thing. And
Oh,
what you're
yay.
doing is something we call future awareness. Future awareness is seeing the future of time. It's knowing that there's something happening, whether it's 5 minutes from now, a half hour, 2 days, and in some cases even 6 months, and I'll explain that in a minute, that you have to focus on now. So here's the good news. As we get older, so I'm talking about children right now, as children get older, their future awareness gene, we'll call it a gene, it's not really a gene, but you know what I mean, that future awareness piece in your brain actually grows. Okay, it just happens. It's organic. So it's why you might have an 8-year-old at home who can only see tomorrow or maybe to Saturday. But if you have a senior in high school, and it's December, they can see this, they can see to May, right?
Mhm.
They can see that they're graduating, there's prom, there's whatever
Maybe they're
is
even looking
happening.
for a summer job already.
Okay, all right. I was being a little fun. You can go to the job. Yes, that's why they can see that piece
Yeah.
actually does grow organically, where our
Okay.
future awareness grows. But it's all of the things you're saying, even the mapping of time, even saying to a 4-year-old, this is what we're doing next. This is what we're doing after.
Mhm.
That actually builds that future awareness piece. Now,
Nice.
my third thing, and we need to tell everyone full disclosure, I do own an academic planner company, but I am not here to sell, I'm not here to sell you academic planners, but I've been at this for 20 years, and I will say this and sing this to the rooftops. Your students need to see their time in relation to their tasks. To truly be time managed, and I love all the T words because it helps kids remember. You need to pair and it's for adults too, Kate, if you think
Yeah, it
about it.
is. It is.
That's time. People ask me, what is really time management? I'm like, well, you got to start with the pairing of your time and your tasks. They need to be married.
Yeah.
They can't live
And
alone.
in organizing, this happens all the time. Like people think, oh, I can do that in 5 minutes. And like, well, let's time how long it really takes you to go through that stack of papers and get through
Exactly.
that stuff. Let's time it. And then you'll get a better awareness of how much time you actually need to plan for your things.
And when you're doing that planning, and you're at least planning now, knowing what it's going to take you, what else is going on that might get in your way? So one of your clients could say, hey, you know what? I'm going to sit down on Saturday morning and, take care of this. It's only going to take me 10 minutes. Well, they didn't know it's really taking them an hour. And now they have to take a kid to dance class. And then they're going to the grocery store because they're having guests for dinner because they didn't see what else. They didn't see the whole picture.
Yeah.
That's also future. So I am a massive believer that kids need an academic planner, not electronics. I see it in my line of work. And interesting, here's a fun fact for you. We are seeing more and more and more research that not even research, it's just that the planner business has grown exponentially. And the largest group that has gone back to paper planning, wait for it, are high school and college students. Why? Because they have so much on their plates that they say that they can't see it. Oh, there it goes again. They can't see it. I'm not making this up. There's
No,
an
it needs to be
organization.
physically tangible for them.
I'm
Okay,
not making this
interesting.
up. There's a paper,
I love that
and
they're taking it on themselves that at that age to go old
yes,
school, as they might say, and they're seeing the value in actual putting pen to paper.
yes.
Can
And
you might want to talk about this later, but one question is, I've been seeing a lot of these, the new like sort of digital paper things. Like Amazon has, I think it's Scribe. There are other ones that are called like other ones where it's like, they're like, it feels like a pen and paper and it captures it digitally. Is that
not the same,
not the
because it's
same?
a different purpose. Listen, we work here. I should tell you, we coach a ton of students. Most of the
Right.
students we
You are
coach
much
are
more than an academic planner company, but you also have an
no,
academic planner. Yeah.
we coach students who are, we coach
Yeah.
high school and college students well, it doesn't matter what they have, who come to us, who need help
Yeah.
with executive functioning skills and all that. We are very much about like a live scribe and voice to text and all of that. Very different.
Those are good
Very different.
tools
They're
for their
amazing tools.
Yeah.
Because a lot of students who sit in class we say they can't auditorily and visually process at the same time. And that again is a fancy way of saying they can't listen to a lecture and take notes. It's either one or the other. So if they're listening, they can't take the notes. And
I
if
guess
they're
that makes
taking the
sense.
notes,
I know it never occurred to me that that would be an
Oh,
issue for people, because
it is,
it's one of those things where that comes naturally to me, not to everybody, I guess.
it's,
So,
well, it's more people can, it's very, 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 I mean, I can, because I'm going to be honest, I did not grow up with ADHD. I don't have
right.
executive functioning challenges, but I live in a world for the last 20 years that everyone around me, both personally and professionally, all do.
Yeah.
And so when you're, I mean, I know this isn't an executive functioning class, but one of the executive functions is focus. And what we think when we think focus is the kid that is like daydreaming, or, doodling, or just not paying attention. And no, yes, that is definitely an inability to focus, is definitely one of them. But there's the other one that I always say, it's the one we never talk about. It's the ability to be able to auditorily and visually process at the same time. So, for example, many of you in Kate's community has a child that cannot look at you when you speak to them. We as parents are
Oh,
like this, not obnoxiously, but we're like, I'm talking to you, look at me, right? We think, and I'm like, no, if you want your student, we call them students, we don't call them kids. If you want your student to really hear you, you need to get them up and doing laps around your dining room table, because they cannot look at you and hear you. So if your child's teacher is saying, we're sitting and he's turning, for our purposes, we're just going to use the word he turns his back, he's looking down, he's doodling. All of that is your child's way of self-advocating for themselves, to say, I need to be doing that so I can process the information. Even teachers say, where they used to be like eyes up here, they've stopped doing that. But well, not everyone, but they're stopping it, because again, they're noticing and they know that kids really struggle with those two modalities together. Okay, that was just a little fun fact for all of you. But
that's
so
interesting.
we don't want to do that anymore, parents. We don't want to be going like this. If you have a kid that struggles, do the opposite. I know it doesn't seem intuitive, but it is. Like, you want them to be doing laps around your house or dining room table. I used to do that with my own son. I'd sit and I'd go, Eli, get up and move, because I have something important to tell you. And he would just like, this is research. Movement helps us lay down learning, which again is just a fancier way of getting information into the brain and getting it stuck. Think about when you need to memorize things. Most people pace back and forth when they have to memorize. But movement helps us initiate. It helps us. I always say it's like a smoothie. It's just filled with all the good stuff. Movement helps us lay down learning, initiate. It helps us plan. It helps us retain. It also helps us, I want to say, combat distractibility. So when people ask me all the time, like, what's the opposite of distractibility, or what can I do? I'm always like, move. You'll notice your kid, if they're moving, they're less distracted, because if we sit for too long, the brain just drains. It gets exhausted. And when the brain is exhausted, I don't know if this is what you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, so good.
But what it does is it looks for that dopamine hit, right? It's looking for like, what's going to make me jazzed? Oh, look at that. This is what's going to make me jazzed.
Yep.
But if I'm standing and moving and learning while I'm, so to your point, the professor who had them moving, I always tell parents, like, go take the flashcards, grab the dog, take your kid on a walk for 20 minutes. They're going to come back and they're not even going to realize that they studied.
Yeah. Nice.
They were. So
those are great little ideas. And I think also this goes back to your talk about like using the academic planner. It's a physical piece of paper. So there is movement associated, small, fine motor movement, but there's some movement associated with writing that stuff down.
Yes.
And I think I mean, I remember as a student a million years ago, like for me, taking notes was what I needed. So when I'd study, I would write stuff down and that would imprint it on my brain.
Well, but that's research too. Like the brain and the body, believe it or not. Okay, I know this is going to sound funny, but you got to remember, I talk to students all day. Do you remember the necklace? It was best friends and it was split down the middle.
Yes.
I don't know. I'm
really
dating myself.
No,
right?
my
Your
daughter
best
had
friend
one,
had one, right?
and you had the other.
You had the other. I tell my students that's what the brain and the body are like. They're BFFs. They're born out of the same cell. So anytime you write something, it connects instantly
Yeah.
to the brain. So that's also why paper planners. Now, I know there's a lot of pushback, but interestingly, so what we do at Order Out of Chaos, and I have to tell you this, parents, is obviously we don't ram a planner down a kid's throat. If there is a child who says, I need electronics, that's what's going to work for me, we will never we're all about whatever works for the student. However, we require them because we say, like, we cannot teach you time management unless you have a planner.
Mm-hmm.
So this is our little buy-in. We never, ever, ever look at a student, and even I teach this to parents, and we never say, your child, like, you need to write in a planner. Because when we say things like you should, or you need, or I want you to, it's really our agenda and not theirs.
Yeah.
So it's almost like the sneaky chef who stuck like zucchini in the brownies. So like your kid didn't really know, but they kind of know. It's kind of like how you have to do it. So I teach parents, I'm like, I don't want you to say you need to, or I want you to. You got to ask some questions like, hey, so I know you have 2 tests on Friday and you don't get home till soccer practice on Thursday night till 10. Like, how are you planning your time? How are you going to plan to get that work done? Well, how are you going to see it? How are you going to see what else gets in your way? And what starts to happen is these questions, they're not nudgy. Now, granted, it's not a one and done, and you have to learn how to do it in your own tone and your own way. And in my house, everything was funny because that's what my son responded to, was funny. But what happened is you start stumping them like, oh, you're right, I don't see it. I'm like, well, can you show me how you're going to? Like, how are you? And that's kind of how we start to get buy-in with our kids on the planner. We don't talk about it in terms of what they have to do, because if you're going to ask them what they have to do, they will know. They will recite that to-do list. It's not about what they have to do. It's about when they have time to do it, and can they see that time?
Okay.
And that's where the conversation goes differently. Oh, you're right. I can't see it. Can you show me? You can't show me. So do you think it might be a good idea to write it? Now, the other thing I tell parents, writing in a planner is 2 steps. We got to go to B before we can go to C. And when I say that, I get the huh? And I'm like, yeah, because what you're doing is you're asking a student to write down things and then write them in a planner. So we first want to get them writing, even if it's sticky notes or a piece of paper. And one of my students was a roll of paper towels his entire junior year. I don't care. I don't care. But we need to get them writing first, then we can move them to a planner. Remember, writing in a planner is not the goal. Writing in a planner is the system to a goal of being time managed.
Yep.
Big difference. Big difference. So that's how I would love you when you're talking about time and you're talking maybe about planner usage. Go the direction of time, not to-dos. And you'll see the conversation will change.
Yeah, I love that, because you said that with the that family calendar. That family calendar is just a list. That's just a to-do list. It doesn't map it out. It doesn't really map out when you're going to do the work to prepare for those events, or how you're going to move through the day in order to get to the different events or get to the different tasks. Even if you have a to-do list, is just a list of things to do. So like you said,
it has to
it's not about what they have to do. That's the list. It's about
not about what,
when.
It's about when.
And
it's about, can you see it? I want you, like, if you take anything away from this, I want your community to hear, I want them to remember the word see it. And it's interesting. We never think of time as a C, not a C, S-E-E.
Right.
But we don't.
Right.
But that should be everything you're moving towards.
Yeah.
Everything.
And that's why the analog clocks are great. And I know there are other, aside from just the regular analog clock, when they're learning, there are those ones that, like the time timer and things that that have
Absolutely. The
you
disc
know,
that,
the disc that moves or the wedge that gets smaller so that they can see
right.
the
And
time closing in or elapsing.
and you can't even see, because you can't see my whole office. You only see what's neat if I showed you the other side of my office. But I have about 10. Here's another one of my favorite tools in the world. I'm gonna grab one just to show you. But I have about 10 of them on my thing, and people now send them to me. It's kind of fun.
Oh,
But
fun. Kids
I use
love those. Those are fun to use. You grab them from any game too, even if you want to do like a little 2-minute challenge, but the big one is great.
I have, and I also have ones because a lot of you are going to come back to me sometimes. My kid can't read a clock. Like, trust me, I've heard everything. You know that, Kate. I've heard everything. They actually make timers where they will tell you on the timer how many minutes it is
Oh, on the sand timer? Yeah.
on the sand timer. So I have a timer. I have literally have timers that say 2 minutes. I have a timer that says 5 minutes. I have a timer that says 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So it does help. Like, is it the perfect thing? No, but for those kids out there, because I know someone's going to say it, that this is probably my other tool that I love because
Nice.
it does show, you know what I mean?
Right. And like you said, your son, you knew you needed to use humor with. Like some kids think that sand timer is fun. If they gravitate toward that, if that's what they like, then do it. And like with my organizing clients, there's not one way that's going to work for
No,
everybody. They need to inform you, help you understand what their way is going to be or what they want to try. And with kids too, they should they they're trying a lot of things for the first time. They don't know how to study. They don't know how to do all these things. So let them try.
let them try. And my other thing would be anyway, particularly if you have a child at home who does have ADHD or executive functioning challenges, any way you can make it game like
Mm-hmm.
is going. So here's anytime you can make something less boring. I mean, I'm going to be blunt, less boring, make it a little more novel and fun. So that's why, to your point, timers can, some kids find timers anxiety producing. Other kids love them because it's like a game. Like, again, I'm dating myself, but there was a TV show 1,000 years ago when I was little called Beat the Clock, right? And you had to like do these
Probably
ridiculous
like
things. And
minute to
like,
win it is the next
right, minutes away.
iteration.
I know. I am
Yeah.
so old,
Which is
my
still
friends,
old.
but I'm so old. But like something like this, some kids find these, like you said, they're super fun and
But
game
interesting,
like.
you said some find it anxiety producing. So you need to work with your kid to know which help them
Right,
help tell you which
right,
is it for them. Is that the fun thing or do they like the time timer clock or something? So this
right.
has been great. I think the overall, like, my main takeaway is obviously like time management is about getting them to see time and to understand it as that really tangible concept to externalize. So you have to externalize time for them so that they can internalize it,
It's
right?
good, right? Like you can
Yeah,
remember that. I know. I
right.
like
And it's
little,
not about what they have to do, but it's about when and how can they see that time, see themselves doing it, walk them through the steps. So those I think are the best back to school. Cause I mean, there are always all the specific notebooks and things, and everybody likes their different
yes.
methods for those,
I
you know.
always say back to school, getting ready for back to school is way more than the 2-inch red binder from Staples. It's just,
Absolutely. It just is. And no, this is a huge component. And I love that, parents really at every stage of life, we can learn to manage our time better and we can learn through being able to visualize it and see it. So even
yeah.
when you're little and, I still sometimes resist time management tools and, you know,
Listen, I am not a digital girl. Like my husband to this day keeps saying, "Would you please can we have a shared calendar so I know like." I'm like, "No, sorry, not gonna happen." Like I am a little resistant. I need my paper. I mean, I'm getting better, but I really need my paper and I need old-fashioned things for me even to internalize.
yeah.
Internal. So
I'm super
yeah,
digital, but when I really need to dig in and like figure something out, it's paper, you know.
So
So
I don't know if anyone out here follows me, but I was, this is back to school is our craziness right now. And about 2 weeks ago, I sat here with I'm gonna, you know what, I'll show you because there's nothing private on it. but we have about 15 initiatives happening between yesterday and the end of September. And this is literally how I do it. I have these giant sticky notes. All of my students use them. It's our number one selling like tool in our shop. Like,
Yeah, those are fun.
But every one of my students, whether they're 8 or 18, use them because you can do anything on them. And this is how I do our company's planning. And my team jokes like, she's got to take a picture of it and send it to us, like, Leslie. And I'm like, can't do the base camp, can't do the Monday. You know, these are all different like team platforms. This is how I plan.
It works.
And then
and I actually use, I use Evernote for a lot of notes, and I like that I can take that and, you know, if I'm at a lecture, if I'm listening to something or whatever it is, or if I'm planning something out, I can take notes and then I just scan it into Evernote pretty easily with my phone.
I use Evernote also, actually. I will take photos of this and then put it in. And my students, people ask me all the time, what is my number one favorite? Listen, I'm not against digital for kids. I don't like digital like planning for kids, but Evernote is my number one tool for kids because not only can they put PowerPoints in there and videos and their syllabi and all of that, what people don't know, and I'll give you this little fun fact for parents, particularly for older students, and it's not for the free Evernote. You do have to pay for this version of it. But if your child, let's say, has a PowerPoint, you know, in college, a lot of the professors will send the PowerPoint prior to the lecture.
Right.
Your student can actually annotate right on the PowerPoint in Evernote. And it is a game freaking changer, but especially for those that are having a hard time doing the connecting. So they read their PowerPoint before they go to class. So there's some level of like familiarity. And now they can literally annotate right on the PowerPoint.
Yeah.
I
that's pretty great. Yeah. Yeah, okay. Absolutely. Well, thank you. That was great. Yeah. No, this is super helpful. And yeah, my kids definitely have benefited from your products, your videos. I know that you have like a ton. Sign up for what do you want people to do? Sign up for your mailing list?
I have two asks, and I hope one of them is okay, but it's free. That's why I think it's okay. So here's so I would love you to, so you should send people to our website because I think that is so.
And that's on my resources page. So if anyone wants to just go, if you're familiar with my site, katebosch.org/resources, and you're one of my resources. So it's right there.
Our site is orderooks.com, not order out of, it's orderooks.com. From that site, you can go anywhere. You can go to our parent education library. We have a parenting hub. We have everything. I write the Dear ADHD Family Coach column for Attitude Magazine. I think I've written over 300 columns. They're all there. I mean, there's videos and podcasts, just anything for those of you, if you have a child who has some kind of neurodivergency, if that's even a word, you should absolutely, we always say our website is the hardest working member of our team because it is.
There's so much there. I just told you before we were talking, I'm like, it's like a one-stop shop. Anything you need, like anything that your student is struggling with, you can find a resource.
So I want to offer this too. So I'm looking at a calendar.
And a lot of them free. A lot of your resources on your website are totally free. I mean, this is not like,
No. And in fact, so one of the things that we do is we offer webinars for our community.
Yep.
Doesn't cost to be a member of our community, but our back to school webinar is always free. That's why I want to mention it. And our back to school webinar this year is on August 22nd. It is at 7 p.m. Eastern time, and it's all on smart study skills for student success. I'm going to tell you, it is our number one most popular webinar because when parents hear study skills, they want to hear why their kids don't study, how to do things. And it's a really fun webinar in that I literally rip back my curtain and I show you how I teach study skills to our coaching.
It's great.
It's also, it's free.
Yes, that's fantastic. Because as students move through school too, I know, they're expected to study, right, for things, but they're never taught how to study. So they hear this word, study, study for the test.
They don't know what it means.
They don't know what it means. And so this is,
So I want to
That's a
share
great
it because
resource.
even if you can't make it live, if you sign up, we
Sign up
send
and
you the recording. We send you the recording of a week to listen. So I just want to offer that as my like gift to
that
your
is
community
fantastic.
because it's free. And I don't want to, I really wanted to try to keep this not as an infomercial, you know what I'm saying?
That'd be
So
great.
if you
No,
are
no, no.
interested
It's
in,
free, a free resource. Like you said, you have a lot of free resources. And
yes.
do you think, so that's a parent resource. What about for high school and college
So
students? Would it be
students,
for them too?
yes. So we tend to, everything we tend to do webinar wise is
Mhm.
skewed to parents for them to learn more. We find with the study skill webinar, even though we're chatting with parents to say like, this is why your kid, this is what you could do, this is how we find that a lot of kids show up along with their parents because it is very study skill driven. It's very study skill driven.
Right. Excellent. Well, thank you.
Okay.
This
You're
is awesome.
welcome.
Thanks so much. Take
Thank
care.
you for having me. I always love talking to you, Miss Kate.
It's always easy. We always go over time, I know, because you just
Oh,
have
I'm
so much
sorry.
information. No, we could just chat all day, but I love hearing everything you have to say. So thanks.
Thank you. Thank you,
Bye.
everyone. Have a great day.
You
Bye,
too.
Kate.
Bye.